If was not what I thought it was. I'm not really sure what my expectations were going into this film. I don't really know how to describe them, but they definitely didn't align with the end result of this film, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If is a sweet story filled with a great cast that give really good performances, and it's a cool emotional story that John Krasinski manages to tell. But it's a little less magical than I thought it was going into this, and the plot wasn't exactly what I thought it was. But it made for a nice surprise, and although I don't think it reaches its full potential, I think it's a pretty solid film. Hey guys, my name's Jackson George. If you haven't seen If and you care about spoilers, here's your spoiler alert. Okay, we're talking a lot of things in this film. So if you care about spoilers, go ahead, click away, watch the film, and then come back here. But if you're someone who just does not care about spoilers or has already seen the film, let's go jump into this thing. If follows a young girl named B as she moves to New York City to live with her grandmother while her father has heart surgery. While she's at her grandmother's house, she starts noticing some weird things going on. A lady constantly running up the stairs trying not to be seen. A weird man who lives upstairs who doesn't want to be bothered. She doesn't really know what's going on until she stumbles upon an If named Blue. She then meets Cal, the man who lives upstairs, who explains to her what ifs are. Imaginary friends. Imaginary friends are real, and B can see them. After learning about her ability to see ifs, she learns that Cal is set on a mission to connect ifs with new friends or new children. These ifs are displaced because their old friends have all grown up and have forgotten about them. And when you forget about your imaginary friend, you stop seeing them. So there's no way for these ifs to get reconnected with their old friends. So Cal set out to help these ifs find new friends, find new children. So B decides to team up with Cal and help him on his mission to connect the ifs with new kids. That's kind of the plot of If. Now, I enjoyed If, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but I left the theater really confused about kind of how the world works. And I know the kind of message of the film is, don't lose your childhood imagination or the importance of imagination and kind of keeping in touch with your inner child, all that kind of thing. But I couldn't make sense of how this if thing worked. Like, how do you see ifs? This thing really bugged me. And maybe it's just me because I don't see a ton of people talking about this. So maybe I missed something. But like at the end of the movie, all the ifs start getting reconnected with their old kids, with their old friends. That's great. I love that. But the whole film kind of sets up this precedent that in order to see your old if, you must trigger a memory, or you have to find some way to get the old child to remember a time with the if, or remember the if. In this montage sequence, one of these ladies just walks out of her job, and then the if's sitting on her car, and she's like, oh my goodness, I remember you. How does that work within the context of everything we set up so far? And I know a couple of the things weren't really explained, like B being able to see her if, because her if was kind of created during the trauma of losing her mother. And now that her father's in a kind of similar situation, she's able to see Cal again. But like, it's never really explained at the end when all these ifs are getting reconnected, what's going on, what's triggering these memories. They just kind of pop up and all their old friends are just like, oh my goodness, I remember you. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. It really bugged me, and I just left the theater like, what? How does this actually work? And again, I may be missing the point that, this is all just imagination. Embrace your inner child. You don't need to think about it too hard. And I know I am one that when it comes to films, I try to make sense of it all, try to piece it all together. And so I understand I may be in a minority in this, but that kind of bugged me. Also, how is B, besides the fact that she's the main character, able to see all the different ifs? But people are only able to see their own. I know they made a joke that she's the chosen one, but I thought that was just a joke. Is that the actual thing? She's able to just see all of them. I know I'm taking way too much into this, but that one also didn't make sense to me. But I think once I got past that point of like, okay, it doesn't have to make sense. The movie's literally titled If, which stands for Imaginary Friends. It doesn't have to make sense. Once I got past that point, I think I looked back on the film and started enjoying it a little bit more. I thought this film was solid. I thought it was really well directed, and I think the cast just knocked the ball out of the park. I think they all did a great job, especially the voice cast, but even the main actress. I forgot her name. I don't have it written down. I should have, but she does a great job. And the whole voice cast is incredible. All the trailers showed just how many big names are in this film. It was fun to see them just pop up in random places, and you didn't really necessarily know which character was going to be voiced by who. I mean, you could with a little bit of research, but I didn't know going into this. I just knew that they were going to be in the film, so it was fun to watch them pop up. And it was even fun to have a couple of surprises in as well. I think especially of Keith, the invisible If, being voiced by Brad Pitt, which is a reference to Deadpool 2, I thought was great, which makes me wonder, is this film connected to Deadpool 2? And if it is, does that mean Deadpool exists? And what's that mean with Ryan Reynolds being an If? Did B see Wade Wilson before the death of her mother? I'm thinking about this way too much, but like, that would be cool. And of course, there's Ryan Reynolds, who just does what Ryan Reynolds does. I think the humor was solid. I laughed a decent amount throughout the film. A lot of the humor is definitely geared towards children. That doesn't mean there won't be a ton for adults to enjoy. There are a lot of jokes geared towards the adults. I did really enjoy the big twist in this film, because there's an underlying question throughout the whole film that's just kind of in the back of your mind as you're watching it, is where's B's imaginary friend? So I like the twist that Ryan Reynolds' character was B's If. The film was really entertaining, and I thought it was, for the most part, pretty well paced. I do think this film feels a little too long. I think the runtime's great. Like, that hour 40, 45 is a perfect runtime for this film. But there are certain scenes and certain moments where I'm like, you probably could have cut those short or cut them out entirely and replaced those with something else. Even though this film felt kind of long, I did think it was pretty entertaining. That being said, I do think some kids will find this hard to sit through. It's slower paced. It's not super stimulating all the time. There's not a ton of action. You know, I think some kids will find it kind of tough, maybe even a little bit boring. But I think a lot of kids will enjoy this film. I said this in the intro, but one of the things that surprised me, maybe even disappointed me, was this film didn't feel very magical. Like, I was under the impression that we were going to step into a world of ifs, you know, just discover all these different things, new places, new locations, see ifs in all these different types of environments. But the film is very self-contained. There's the apartment building, there's the hospital, and then there's Coney Island / If Retirement Center. That's about it. And the If Retirement Center is about as magical as it gets. And because it's a retirement center, it doesn't feel very magical. There is a sequence where B starts changing everything and her imagination just kind of runs wild. But even in that sequence, it doesn't feel super magical. Or that's as close as it gets to what I think should have been more of the film. Just this sense of magic, especially for a film that kind of pushes the message of embrace your inner child. You know, don't forget about your imagination, your childhood imagination. For it to kind of be bland in the magical department, that was kind of disappointing to me. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I'd be more like in awe, more just filled with wonder when I watched this film, and it was just kind of bland. I think If is a solid film. It's got a great voice cast, great performances across the board, introduces a pretty cool concept in what if imaginary friends were real, and I think delivers all the emotional moments that it aimed to. But I don't think it reaches its full potential. It lacks in the magical and wonder department, feels a little too long. But overall, I think If is a solid film and is a really good film to watch with the entire family. But that's what I thought about If. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys thought. As always, thank you all so much for stopping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to support the channel, hit the subscribe button. I hate asking for it, but it really does help. But even with that said, your viewership is enough for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love y'all, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. And until next time, peace out, bro skillets. Whoa.